Hello, welcome to Bits and Biology. My name's Liz, and today I'm going to show you how to play the 1 to 5 player game Parks. Parks was designed by Henry Audubon with artwork from the 59 Parks print series. It was published by Keymaster Games in 2019. Parks celebrates America's national parks with art from the 59 Parks print series, and if you're interested in learning more about that print series, there's a really good book that's The Art of the National Parks by the 59 Parks Print Series organization, which, by the way, when they started that organization in 2016, we did only have 59 national parks. Now we have 63. But anyway, in Parks, players are going to take on the role of 2 hikers who are going to trek trails, take photos, observe wildlife, and of course visit the national parks. And whoever has the most points by the end of the game will be the winner. So this video is being released just ahead of National Parks Week, which starts every year the Saturday before Earth Day and goes through the Sunday after Earth Day. And the first day of National Parks Week every year actually has free entrance to all of the national parks in the United States. So you should take advantage of that if you are going to be in the vicinity of a national park on the first day of Parks Week any year, but this year I think it is April 20th. But anyway, without further ado, let's go down to the table and I will show you how to play Parks. So here we are pretty much set up for a 2-player game of Parks. I'm going to go first through a brief overview of the game and then talk about how we set up the board to get to this point, and then I'm going to talk about how the game plays. I will end by talking about the solo rules. So there are timestamps down below in case you want to jump to any particular point in the video. So Parks is played over 4 seasons. Each has a slightly different trail for you to guide your 2 hikers down. Each turn, players are going to choose which of these trail sites to place their hikers on and then immediately take the action that is depicted at the bottom of the trail site. When a hiker reaches the end of the trail, they can spend tokens that they've earned on their hike down the trail to either visit parks or to purchase gear. Your goal is to earn the most points from your parks, your photos, and your personal bonus by the end of the 4 seasons. So before we look at how to play, I want to take a quick look at the Parks cards used in the game because these are really the star of the show, right? So each one of these features unique art, and there are 48 uniquely illustrated national parks cards in the game, featuring just 45 different parks. The artwork on the cards is from the 59 Parks print series, and despite the name, the 59 Parks print series actually features artwork for each of the 63 national parks, and like I said, just 45 of those are featured in the game. There are 3 parks that appear twice, and that is Arches, Grand Canyon, and Yosemite. All of the other parks that are featured in the game each just appear once. But like I said, all of the artwork on the cards is unique, so you can get an idea of what some of these look like. The artwork features on the cards was originally made through the process of screen printing. And the way that works is each color is layered onto that screen surface separately, and then the ink is pushed through that mesh stencil, right? So that's the screen, you'll have a stencil on that, and you push each color through separately. And so it's very layered. You can see a few of these, how they look. The artwork is just gorgeous, absolutely amazing. So this is a really nice game to play. Just to think about visiting all of these national parks it's kind of fun. You can take a little tour of the parks in a game. If you're interested in learning more about the original artwork, I do encourage you to check out the book, The Art of the National Parks by the 59 Parks organization. And in case you're wondering, when the series started in 2016, there really were just 59 national parks in the United States, so hence the name, the 59 Parks series. Since then, we've added 4 national parks. We've added Gateway Arch in 2018, Indiana Dunes and White Sands in 2019, and New River Gorge in 2020. Out of those 4, only Gateway Arch is featured in the game. The other 3 do not have cards in the game. I think it would be fun to do a nice expansion for the game to include the parks that are not included. That would be really nice. For all I know, actually, I haven't looked at, there's 2 expansions now out for this game. The Nightfall expansion, and I believe the other one's called the Wilderness expansion. And perhaps there are more cards featured in those. I don't actually know. I probably should have looked that up. Sorry for that. But anyway, enough talking. Let's see how we play Parks. So to set up the game, you're first going to place this main board in the center of the table so that all players have access to it. Place the token trays, and the game comes with 2 of these token trays that hold the tokens that you'll collect throughout the game, including these wildlife tokens, as well as the photos that you'll take during the game. So there's 2 of these that come with the game. I'm just using one for space reasons. But you'll put those in reach of all the players. And then you will shuffle the parks deck and lay out 3 parks face up. And one thing I didn't point out on each of these cards is each one will have the name of the park, the year that it was established, the name of the artist who did the artwork. We have points over here on the left. These are the tokens that will cost you to visit the park. It tells you what state the park is located in, and then tells you a little tidbit about the park. So for instance, for Kings Canyon National Park, this is located in California, and it says, in order to see the park's full splendor of backcountry and high country, you'll want to plan on overnight hiking. That sounds like a good plan. All right, so those are the parks cards. Next thing you want to do is shuffle the gear deck and lay out 3 of those cards. The gear deck, these are cards that you can purchase when you reach the end of the trail for the cost of the sun shown up in that top right corner. So you would pay that in sun tokens. And they give you ongoing abilities you can use throughout the game. So for instance, this one says that sun tokens can be used in place of tree tokens when you are visiting a park. So for instance, for Kings Canyon National Park, I could use 2 sun tokens in place of those 2 tree tokens, for instance. Here it says parks cost 1 less mountain to visit. So for instance, I could visit Shenandoah National Park for the cost of just a tree token. This says you may also spend 2 tokens to take a picture at the water site. So this site with the ocean picture here, I believe this is, actually not sure what park that's from, maybe Virgin Islands? Anyway, when you're there, you could spend 2 tokens to take a picture with the camera at that site. And that gives you an idea of some of what the gear cards allow you to do. They're very useful, especially if you get them early on in the game. Next, you're going to want to shuffle up these canteen cards. You can see they have a canteen icon on the back of the card. So you'll shuffle these up and you'll deal 1 to each player face up. And so here, I have these 2 canteen cards here, and the way that these work is on a turn where you collect a water token. So these water tokens here, you can place that water token on your canteen. You're filling up your canteen to get the action depicted below the canteen itself. So in this case, you would take 2 sun tokens. For this canteen here, this allows you to trade 1 token, any token, so water, tree, sun, or mountain, to get a wildlife token instead. And like I said, these wildlife tokens are wild. They can stand in for any of the 4 tokens. Or you can reserve a park, and that's what that symbol means there. So that gives you an idea of what the canteen cards do. Everybody starts with 1, and you're able to collect more throughout the game by stopping at one of the trail sites. Next, you're going to want to shuffle the year cards. These are personal bonus cards. They have the calendar icon on the back of them, and these provide players with an individual private goal that they work towards throughout the game in order to earn a bonus number of points. It's usually 2 or 3 points, depending on whether they achieve the lesser version of the goal or the greater version of the goal. And so I've already done that here. Now everybody would get dealt 2, and then they will choose 1 of those to keep before the game gets started. And so for instance, this one wants 6 water on visited parks, like we have 4 here on Kenai Fjords, and take 3 pictures. That will earn you 2 points. Or if you manage to get up to 10 water on visited parks and take 5 pictures, you could instead use 3 points. These do not stack, so you would either earn 2 points or 3 points depending on what level you accomplished there. This one simply wants you to visit 6 parks with trees or 8 parks with trees, and you can get either 2 or 3 points. So those are personal goals. Those are the year cards. So everybody gets dealt 2 and they choose 1. Next thing you're going to want to do is shuffle the seasons deck. So this is the seasons deck here with a little flower icon on the back of it. Shuffle those up and then turn over the top card. Put that face up right there. We'll talk more about the seasons cards in just a moment. Next thing you're going to want to do is set up the trails. So if you look on each of these trail cards, in the bottom right corner, there is on 5 of them, a tent icon. On 4 of them, there is a tent with an asterisk in that bottom right corner. And then one of them actually has a tent and a 4+ symbol. So the 4+ with the tent symbol, this gets used in a 4 or 5 player game. Otherwise, you can set that aside like I'm going to do. And what you want to do is you want to take each of these 5 trail cards that has the tent symbol in the bottom right corner there. These are your basic trail sites. And you're going to shuffle up the advanced trail sites. These are the ones with the tent and the asterisk in the corner. So you shuffle these up. You choose one without looking at it, I should say. Shuffle that in with the basic trail sites. And then you're going to lay those out one after the other from left to right. At either end, you will have first the trail head. That's the one here with Arches National Park shown on it. And then the one all the way over here at the right, this is the trail end. Oops, I've got it turned to the solo side. You'll want to make sure that it is on the side that has the tent if you're playing a multiplayer game, and on the side with the solo symbol if you're playing a solo game. So we'll put that face up there. All right, so now we have the trail set up. I'm just going to go through these different trail sites really quick on what the different actions mean. If you stop at this trail site here, you can either take the top canteen card and put it in your player area, it's now yours, or you can spend 2 tokens to take a picture, and if you don't already have it, you would take the camera. If you do already have the camera, it actually only costs you 1 token to take a picture. These 4 right here that have the symbols of the tokens on them just mean that when you land on those trail sites, you get those tokens. So either 2 water, 2 sun, 1 mountain, or 1 tree. This is one of the advanced trail sites, and this simply means you can trade in 1 token to get a wildlife token. So again, those are wild. They can stand in for any of the 4 tokens. So that's how you set up the trail. The last thing to do is to make sure everybody has 2 hikers in their player color and a campfire also in their player color. The campfire has 2 sides. One is the lit side and the other is the exhausted side. So everybody starts with their campfire on the lit side. Then you decide who is the first player and you give them the first player marker. We'll make green the first player. And the person to the right of the first player starts with the camera. The camera gives you, let's talk about this real quick. The camera gives you a couple of advantages. One, when you visit this trail site here, instead of costing 2 tokens to take a picture, it will just cost you 1 token. Also, when you reach the end of the trail, when everybody reaches the end of the trail, at the end of the season, whoever is holding the camera has the option to take a picture. And one last thing to do that we didn't do for setup, I nearly forgot, is when you turn over that season card, you're going to look at the weather pattern in the bottom right corner there, and starting with the second trail site, not the first one, the second trail site, you are going to lay out tokens in that weather pattern. So in this case, we have rain and then sun. And you're going to do that all the way up till the end of the trail. So we have rain, sun, rain, sun, rain. We don't have another spot to put sun. Trail head and the trail end do not get weather tokens. And again, you start with the second trail site. So that is how you set up for a game of parks. Lay out the board, shuffle the parks deck, lay out 3 parks, shuffle the gear deck, lay out 3 gear cards, shuffle the canteen deck, deal everybody 1 face-up canteen, shuffle the season deck and turn up the top card. You'll shuffle at the start of the game, you'll shuffle the 5 basic trail sites with one of the advanced sites. Shuffle those out, lay them out from left to right, set the remaining trail sites off to the side. Deal everybody 2 of those personal bonus cards from the year deck and have them choose one and discard the other. So that everybody will have a personal bonus that they actually will keep private, right? Those would be face down. The canteens remain face up. And then finally, everybody gets 2 hikers in their player color and a campfire that matches that player color. And actually now finally, you want to make sure to lay out the weather pattern on the trail sites. Now we are ready to play the game. On their turn, players are going to move one of their hikers to any one of the sites. So the only restriction when moving your hiker to a site is that you cannot visit a site that is already occupied by another hiker. The only exception to that we'll talk about in just a minute, but generally you cannot go to a site that is already occupied by a hiker. Once you visit a site, so let's say this hiker goes here, if there's a weather token, you would take it, add it to your personal supply, and then you'll do the action associated with that site. In this case, they get 2 water tokens. Now the next person would go, they'll move one of their hikers. Again, they can't go here unless, let's say they wanted to go here because they really wanted 2 water. They could move their hiker there if they turn their campfire over from its lit side to its exhausted side. That will stay on its exhausted side until one of their hikers reaches the end of the trail, at which point it can be turned over. But let's say they went to a different site. So let's say they went here. They take the weather token that's there, the sun, and here it says you can trade in any 1 token to get a wildlife token. So let's do that because wildlife tokens are wild, so they're much more versatile. So we'll trade in the sun token and get this wildlife token. These wildlife tokens are all unique. They're all different animals. So here we have a cougar, a moose, a bison, a bat, and so on. So there's a bear, and there's a few others in there. So each one of them is unique. You take one there, put it with your personal supply. And you'll keep doing that until both players, well, actually until all but one player has reached the end of the trail. And I'll talk about the trail end actions in just a moment. But when all but one player has reached the end of the trail, that remaining hiker must immediately move to the end of the trail. Now let's see what it looks like maybe at the end of hiking down the trail after the first season. Okay, now there is a limit to the number of tokens you can have in your personal supply. You can never have more than 12 wildlife tokens by the end of your turn. So you can have more during your turn and then discard down to 12. But at the end of your turn, you cannot have more than 12 of these resource tokens. So whether it be wildlife or any of the other tokens, you can only have 12. So let's take a look at these different actions that you can take once you get to trail end. One thing you can do is go to this top spot and reserve a park. This would allow you to take a park, perhaps because you can't yet afford it, but you really want to eventually get that park. Maybe it has something to do with your personal goals. So like this one has 4 water, and the personal goal here is they need 6 water on visited parks and take 3 photos to get 2 points, or 10 water on visited parks and take 5 photos to get 3 points. So maybe they want to reserve this. So they'll put this sideways in their player area. And if they are the first person to do that, they go all the way over here to the right where you can see this first player marker symbol. And that means that if that player does not already have the first player marker, they would then take the first player marker. Another thing you can do at the end of the trail is to buy gear. So the first person to do this at the end of the season would go, and this depends on the number of players. So in a 4 or 5 player game, there's 2 of the slots I'm about to talk about. In a 2 or 3 player game, there's only 1 slot, and that is these slots with the suns on them. So gear has a cost that's paid in sun tokens. So this one costs 2, that costs 3, that one costs 3. So let's say this person landed here. They're the first one there. They're going to go on that sun symbol and they're going to buy some gear. They're going to buy this, well actually maybe they want, we can look at how this works. They have to pay 3 sun to get this gear, except if they're the first person, they get a 1 sun discount. That's what that sun symbol means right there. And again, if there's 4 or 5 players, there's two of these spots. In a 2 or 3 player game, there's just 1 of these spots available to you. So they would pay, they get the 1 sun discount, so they only have to pay 2 suns to purchase that gear card, and this goes into their personal supply and is available to them as an ongoing benefit throughout the game. So these can really benefit you. Once that person has purchased their gear card, that gets replaced right like that. And anytime a park is reserved or visited, that would get replaced right away. The next thing you can do is come down here to the last area here and visit a park. And so in order to visit a park, you have to have enough tokens to pay the cost to visit it. So if we look at this person here, they have this wildlife token that's wild, and they have this tree. So they have essentially 2 trees. They also have a mountain, and so they could visit Kings Canyon National Park. It costs them 2 trees and a mountain to visit that park. And so they would put this vertical in their player area, and then that park would get replaced there. So these would go into the general supply, and they have paid to visit that park. This will be worth 3 points to them at the end of the game. Let's see what their personal bonus was. Oh, perfect. Visit 6 or 8 parks with trees, so they're already well on their way. And then maybe somebody else wants to visit a park, so that's okay. There's no limit to how many hikers can be on that space right there. And actually, there's no limit to how many hikers can be on any of the spaces. The only limit is the first person to reserve a park gets that first player marker. The first, or in the case of a 4 or 5 player game, the first and second person to purchase gear gets a 1 sun discount. There's no such discount for landing on that last, for taking that last action. So this person here has a gear card that says parks cost 1 mountain less to visit. So they have a mountain and a tree. They could visit Shenandoah, but they don't even have to actually pay that mountain. They only have to pay the tree to visit Shenandoah National Park. So they would pay their tree, and then that would go vertical in their player area. So that would be worth 2 points to them at the end of the game. There's no limit to the number of parks you can reserve, and there's no penalty at the end of the game for reserving a park but not visiting it. But it does take you an action, so I guess that's really the penalty there. If you're trying to just block it from somebody else, that's a valid strategy, but it does cost you an action that you're not visiting a park yourself. And so then that would be replaced like that. All right, so everybody has reached the end of the trail. They've taken all of their actions. This person, maybe they want to spend 1 token because they have the camera, so they spend a token to take a picture. These pictures are each worth 1 point at the end of the game, so we'll put that there. Campfires have all been turned over. Any canteens that might have been used, the water would be turned into the general supply, and then everybody would place their hikers at the start of the trail. If it's not the end of the game, you would pick up all of the trail sites. You would take another advanced site and shuffle that in with the trail sites that were already laid out, and you would lay those out from left to right, just like last time. So now it's a different trail that you have to hike down. Everything's in a slightly different order. Oh, that's a really good one. I'll talk about that one in a minute. Okay. So we've added another advanced site here. This advanced site says that you can either visit a park or reserve a park, or you can purchase gear if you land on this trail site here. So that's a really good one. Let's take a look at these other 2 advanced trail sites. This one says you can pay a water drop to do the action of somebody else's hiker, the spot that they're on. So let's just say we're towards the end of our game here, and these have been shuffled in, so we have our full trail. So if somebody were to visit this site here, let's say we have a hiker here, maybe a hiker there, and a hiker there, and this person lands on this spot here, they can pay a water drop to take either this action, or this action, and so either reserve or visit a park or buy gear, or trade in a token for a wildlife token, or gain a mountain. Now, one very important thing when you are visiting these trail sites, you must be able to take the action of the site you visit. So you can't go somewhere simply to block somebody else from going. You have to be able to take that action. So for instance, if this green player, let's say they were back there and they didn't have any water tokens, they would not be able to go to that site because they can't pay the water cost in order to take the action. Likewise, if they had no tokens, they wouldn't be able to go here because they have no tokens to trade in to get a wildlife token. That would be true here as well. Let's talk about this site for a minute. This site right here says that you can trade in any one token for a different token. You may do that twice. So you only have to be able to do it one time in order to be able to go to that site, but you could do it twice if you wanted to. The only restriction for trading tokens is you cannot trade in a token for a wildlife token. It has to be one of the other regular tokens. So they could trade in, for instance, a sun for a mountain. I think that is all of, so these all four actually ended up next to each other, all four of these advanced sites. I think I've explained each of those. The only other thing you would want to do at the start of a season is make sure that you discard the season card and turn over the next one, and you would lay out the weather pattern according to the pattern in that bottom right corner. And again, you always start with that second trail site. So we would go sun, water, sun, sun, water, sun. So let's put our water in here. And then we would do sun and then water. So that's all of our weather pattern laid out. Another thing about the season cards is that they give everybody a benefit for the season. So for instance, this one says parks cost one less sun to visit. Well, there's none out there that cost a sun, so that would be pretty useless at the moment. This one says gear costs one less sun to buy. So again, these are applicable to everybody. This one says gain one water if you gain any tree on a turn. So that is true even if, let's talk about that one for a minute. Gain one water if you gain any tree on a turn. So that actually goes for this site as well. So if a player went to this site that lets them trade one token for another, they could trade this water token for a tree token. And if this were the season card that was face up, because they gained a tree token, they would also gain a water token. I think that covers everything about how to play. So we've covered setup, we've covered what you do on your turn, what you do at the end of the season, what you do at the start of a season. There is a 12 token limit. We've talked about how fires get relit after they get used. How to use canteens. If you gain a water on your turn, you can use a water to fill a canteen and gain the benefit that's pictured below the canteen. If you, let's say they went to this site and collected that sun and a tree, even though they have a water token, they would not be able to fill their canteen because they did not gain that water token on that turn. So you can only fill a canteen with a water token that you've gained on that turn. All right, so let's talk about end game scoring. So I'm going to lay this out as if maybe it was the end of the game. All right, so this is what it might look like at the end of a season. One thing that I forgot to mention is if at the end of the season there are any weather tokens remaining on trail sites, those would get discarded. Sometimes a season card would have you put weather tokens on the parks. If there are any weather tokens on the parks at the end of the season, those stay put. They do not get removed. All right, let's go to end game scoring. The first thing you're going to take a look at are these bonus cards to see whether or not you met the criteria. So this person easily exceeded, let's see, they have 14 water on their visited parks, so they easily exceeded the requirement of 10 for the higher bonus, but if we look, they were only able to take 3 pictures, and so they would only get that first bonus of 2 points. So let's come over here to this person. The pink player wanted to visit either 6 or 8 parks with trees, so all of the parks they visited have trees, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They just barely made it. There's 8 parks that do have trees on them. It doesn't say how many, so they just have to have at least 1. And so they would get the full 3 points. So again, those points do not stack. They would not get 5 points. They would just get the 3 points. All right, so once you figure that out, the next thing you want to look at is the points on the parks themselves. So this person here has 21 points, if I did my quick in my head math right. So they had 21 points on visited parks plus 2 points for their bonus, so they're up to 23 points. Then you would look at how many pictures they took. They get 1 point per picture, so this would be 3 points. So this green player would get 26 points. The pink player has 25 points on their visited parks. Remember, they got 3 points from their bonus, so that's 28 points. And 3 pictures, they were able to take 3 pictures, so they're up to 31 points. So pink is the winner in this case. If there is a tie, whoever visited the most parks would be the winner. And if there is still a tie, the players would share the victory. Now let's take a look at how the solo mode is played. Here we are set up for a solo mode of parks. Recall that you want to make sure you're using the solo trail end tile. It has the solo symbol in the bottom right corner. But other than that, setup is almost the same as it is for a multiplayer game. You lay out the tiles in the same way. You do the weather pattern from the season card. The solo player gets 1 canteen card and gets to choose from 2 of the year cards, those personal bonus cards. They also get a campfire. You lay out the parks the same way. The differences are the gear deck gets shuffled and placed in the same spot, but you do not lay out gear cards for the solo game. We'll talk about that in a minute. The solo player starts with the camera and the first player marker, and you have this solo AI deck. The solo AI is known as the Rangers. So we have here at the trailhead, the solo player is going to be pink and the Rangers are going to be green. So what the Rangers get are their 2 hikers and this deck. And you can see that here we have the Ranger tracker. We'll talk about how that gets filled up in a minute. But once it has 3 suns on it, you would do the top part of this card. In this case, the back ranger moves to your closest hiker down trail. Or if 3 of the water tokens were to fill this up, you would instead do the bottom action, which is discard 1 of your canteen cards. I hate that card. That's no fun. Once you use 1 of these, that gets discarded and you would turn over the next one from the top of the deck. So how do those get filled up? Well, the solo player takes their turn just like normal. They would move a hiker down the trail and take any weather tokens and the resulting action. The Rangers, on the other hand, how they move is by turning over a gear card. So for instance, this gear card has 1 sun in the corner. It's going to go in this first card slot here. And the Ranger is going to move 1 down the trail. Then maybe the solo hiker takes their turn. Maybe they're going to come here. They're collecting sun for some reason. So they'll do that. Oh, they can't go there, can they? Because they would have to be able to take that action. So instead, maybe they're going to come here and take a water and a tree. Remember, you can only go to sites if you can take the action on that site. Then the Rangers would turn over another gear card. Oh, look, it's another 1. Now, if the solo player is in the lead, the front ranger is the one that moves. So in this case, this ranger would move 1 to move here. They will take any weather tokens that are on the tile, and those weather tokens come over here on the ranger tracker. So that's how these get filled up. They do not do the action associated with the tile. They do not do that action. They only collect weather tokens that are on the tiles themselves. Then maybe the solo hiker takes their turn. Now they can come here and take that sun token because they have a water token. They're able to do that action. And maybe they want to do the action associated with the rangers. So they can do that and turn that in for 2 suns. Then the rangers would move again. Okay, let's try and find one that's not just 1. Okay, make this a little more interesting, right? Okay, so in this case, they have a 2 on the sun. And again, the solo player is in the lead, so the front ranger would move. They would move 2, but they cannot stop on a trail site that you are on. So they would go to the next trail site. Well, we're still on that one, so then they would move to the next one. And in that case, they would pick up this water token. And again, they do not take the action associated with that site. Now, let's just say that we had just taken our turn, and this is the setup of the board with the ranger in the lead, and they still have a ranger back here at the trailhead. In this case, when they draw their gear card, this would have them move 2. Now that the ranger is in the lead, the rear ranger will take that movement, and they just move 2 and nothing happens because there is no weather token for them to pick up. And then the solo player would take their turn. Now, when it comes to the end of the trail, there are a few differences. For the solo player, there are no differences, except for we'll see that the rangers can get in your way in one instance. But you still have the option to reserve a park. If you're the first one there, you get or keep the first player marker. You could purchase gear, in which case you would be able to purchase the top card of any of these card slots. Let's just say there was a 3 there as well, because we're going to talk about those in a minute. So again, the 1 sun gear cards go here, the 2 sun gear cards go in the 2nd spot, and the 3 sun gear cards go in the 3rd spot. And then you can also visit a park. Now, if the solo player visits a park, let's say that they did that, let's say that they had enough stuff to visit a park. Okay, so what do they have? 3, 6, 9, 10. So they're still within the 12 token limit. So let's say the solo player comes here and they want to visit a park. They're going to visit Grand Canyon National Park. It will cost them 2 mountains, 1 sun, and 3 water. So they would turn those into the general supply and take that into their player area. Now that park would get replaced. The rangers, when they move to the end of the trail, so we turned over a 2, we are in the lead, so the forward ranger moves, and they got a 2 to move to the trail end. Notice these 3 spots here, these are for the rangers. If the ranger moves into trail end with a gear card with 1 sun on it, they would go to this first location, and this tells us that they discard the first park and they move their hiker over here. Now, if the solo player is already there, they would move their hiker onto this symbol over here, blocking now the solo player from taking the reserve a park action. They would not then be able to do that. If the solo player was not already there, then the ranger would move here where that first player marker symbol is, and they would take the first player marker from the solo player, and now they would go first. However, this time they moved in with a 2 sun card, so instead they will discard the 2nd park and they take your camera, which I hate it when they do that. So that's what would happen if they have a gear card with 2 suns on it that gets them to the end of the trail. If they had a gear card with 3 suns on it that gets them to the end of the trail, so let's say that this ranger gets to the end of the trail, and they did that with a 3, they would then discard the park in the 3rd slot, and also all of these gear cards that are in this pile with the 3 suns on them, these would get shuffled back into the gear deck. So you would shuffle those back in, and this has the effect of, as the game goes on, this will be disproportionately made up of 3 sun gear cards, so the Rangers are going to move faster and faster. All right, let's talk about what happens when there's still a hiker on the trail, one or more hikers on the trail, when everybody gets to the end of the trail. So just like in the multiplayer game, let's say both of the Rangers were on the trail and my other hiker was at the trail end as well, my remaining hiker would have to move to the end of the trail and take an action if they choose to. Again, these actions at the end of the trail are optional, but it's, in your best interest to try to take one. If I had both of my hikers out on the trail, when the Rangers both get to trail end, both of these hikers would move to trail end, and I would only get one action. I would not get an action for each of my hikers. I would only get one action. So that's what happens if the Rangers get to the trail end while you still have both of your hikers on the trail. If, on the other hand, you make it to trail end and the Rangers are both still on the trail, they would move to trail end and nothing would happen. They don't take their actions. This would also be true if you make it to trail end and the Rangers only have one Ranger on the trail. They would get moved to the end of the trail and they do not get an action, because notice that they did not move there using a gear card. So that's an easy way to remember. If they move to trail end and it's not because of a gear card, but because everybody was already out at the trail end, they do not get to take one of their actions. That's important because whenever the Rangers discard a card, a Parks card, from the display, that does not get replaced until the end of the season. Once the solo player has taken their actions and you are now preparing for the next season, that is when you will replace those 2 Parks. So you do that. And then everybody would move their hikers to the start of the trail, and just like in the multiplayer game, you would grab one of those advanced trail sites and shuffle that in to your existing trail sites and then lay them out from left to right. So you do that for each of the 4 seasons. And of course you would discard the season card just like in the multiplayer game, turn over the next card and lay out the weather in the right pattern. Again, starting at the second trail site. So you always start at that second trail site. One thing I forgot to mention, if a ranger is on a trail site and that is a trail site that you want to visit, you can still use your campfire just like normal. You would turn it to its extinguished side and you would not then be able to use that again until one of your hikers makes it to the end of the trail, at which point you can turn your campfire over to the lit side. Game end scoring is the same as the multiplayer game. You would check to see if you met your year goals, your personal goals. If you took any photos, those would be 1 point each. And then you would score the points on any parks that you visited. This is a beat your own score solo game. So there is in the rule book on page 10 this solo mode scoring that just basically gives you a benchmark of what you want to shoot for. And so basically the highest score, the one you're aiming for every time, is to get 30 or more points, in which case they tell you that your time on the trail was an unforgettable experience. You made memories that will last a lifetime. Congrats. So that's on page 10. So the solo mode rules are on page 10 and then also on the back of the rule book here. But they're pretty easy to remember. I think the hardest thing to get down at first is remembering how the Rangers move, but it's pretty easy. If you are ahead on the trail, then the front Ranger moves. If, on the other hand, the Rangers are ahead of you on the trail, then the back Ranger moves, and that's it. In that case, this counts as a trail site in that sense, in that if there is a Ranger here, while you still have, both your hikers on the trail, then of course the back ranger is going to move. I think that covers everything pertaining to the solo game. So that is how you play Parks. And that's all I have for you. So hopefully you enjoy the game, enjoy the beautiful artwork, and have fun. Thanks. Bye.